In this lecture, I'll explain what is factor rating method and how to use it to determine best facility locations. Factor rating method is a widely used facility location technique. This method considers both tangible and intangible factors to evaluate alternate facility locations. Intangible factors like labor skills and business environment, and tangible factors like land cost and supply chain costs, etc. Generally, factor rating method is used in final stages of facility location analysis. And a lot of background work goes in collecting inputs for this analysis. However, still this method is widely used because 1. It is simple to use, and second, it helps combine both tangible and intangible factors. So now let's look at various steps involved in factor rating method. So the first step is to identify relevant factors that impact facility location. In the next step, the identified factors are assigned a weight based on their relative importance. The sum of all weights needs to be equal to 1. Then each factor is given a score based on a common scale, generally 0 to 100. Now the score can be determined based on either subjective analysis or based on modeling inputs. The scores are then multiplied with the weights and the weighted scores are summed to determine total score for each alternative. Finally, the alternative which has the highest score is considered the best option. So let's solve a sample problem in order to understand the factor rating method better. So let's go to sample problem sheet. In this case, I have 3 locations where a particular facility can be set up. I need to use factor rating method to determine the best location for setting up the facility. In column A, certain factors have been determined which impact the facility location in this case. The factors are facility and logistics cost, space availability, labor availability and skills, tax and tariffs, infrastructure, and business risk. We have already talked about these factors in detail in previous lectures. The weights of different factors have been determined. These weights have been determined based on the relative importance of these factors. So for example, facility and logistics cost have a weight of 0.4, which is highest among all the factors. This means that facility and logistic costs is the most important factor in driving this decision. So let's sum all the weights, and this weight should be 1. So that's fine. Now in column C to E, we have the scores for each location for individual factors. So for example, cell C5 represents that Indianapolis has a score of 76 for labor availability and skills. Similarly, New York has a score of 60 for labor availability and skills, and Chicago has a score of 50. Now on this factor, Indianapolis seems to be doing the best as the score is maximum for it. So once we have the scores for all the locations, now we need to multiply the weights with the individual scores. So let's create weighted score and we'll copy these locations. In order to calculate weighted score, we need to multiply weight with score. Let's freeze column in this case and then multiply it with the score. Let's copy this formula and paste it all over. So now we have the weighted score for each of the factors and each location. Now we can sum all these weighted scores and we can copy this formula all over. Let's make it bold as well. So now we have a total score of 70.35 for Indianapolis, 62.15 for New York, and 59.75 for Chicago. Now based on this final score, Indianapolis seems to be the best location for setting up that facility. So this is how a factor rating method is used to determine facility location. The final calculations for this method might seem very simple. However, the amount of time and effort that goes into collecting inputs for this method is huge.